The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
And your readers are Tom Travers and
Tom Scanlon.
The first article is titled Emigres Buoyed by Maduro's Capture. Now, where the hell? Okay, there we go. Got it. Okay, this is an article written by Lauren Vilgran and Eduardo Cuevas. As Venezuelans in the United States celebrated the ouster of their country's tyrannical leader, Gustavo Garrari, went live in Instagram in a red MAGA cap, which is his country's red, blue, yellow flag draped around his neck. He cheered President Donald Trump, but days after U.S. forces captured Nicolas Maduro, sobering realities are setting in. And then there's a picture of people with the different flags, the American and the Venezuelan flag. Arrows, the United States Venezuelan emigres have watched helplessly as the Trump administration has revoked or canceled nearly every legal pathway open, once open that is, to them for staying there. And include Venezuela, Maduro may be gone, but the regime's repression was swift and iron-fisted. Many Venezuelan immigrants aren't allowed to stay, but they can't stay safely at home, said Gregory, president of the Venezuelan American Republican Club in Doral, Florida. The situation has put the Venezuelan community in a very, very vulnerable position, he said. Since Trump took office, more than 500,000 Venezuelan immigrants have lost or are at risk in losing their legal status to remain in the United States. The Trump administration canceled the temporary protested status of more than 600,000 Venezuelans and reviewed a humanitarian parole program that allowed roughly 120,000 Venezuelans to come legally for 2 years with sponsorship. At the same time, the administration is short-circuiting applications for asylum by asking judges to dismiss or preemptively cancel cases. The administration has argued that Biden's protections were unlawful or unnecessary, and that the asylum system designed to protect central groups and certain groups of persecuted people in rife with these claims. Quote, "It's devastating and tragic that you have people who risked everything only to find a completely dysfunctional system in the United States," said Lisa Coop, who's the director of legal services at the Chicago-based National Immigrant Justice Center, and it represents asylum seekers. Tricia McLaughlin, Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary, told Fox News on January 4th that Maduro's capture meant Venezuelans can go home. Quote, he said, "The great news for those who are here from Venezuela on temporary protected status is that now they can go home with hope for their country, a country that they love, that there is going to be peace, prosperity, and stability, she said. Garagori, who repeatedly thanked Trump for taking decisive action against Maduro, told USA Today he felt an optimism for the future in Venezuela that he didn't have before. But he also sees a long and difficult road ahead. Quote, Venezuela isn't safe for anyone, he said, not for those who left, not for those who are still here. And a highlighted headline, Maduro is gone, but the government remains. Venezuelan American Nura Melendez, who's 53 years old, won asylum in the United States 2 years ago alongside her husband and her son. The couple, who fled their native country in 2015, founded a nonprofit in New York City to help others find their footing in the USA. She was a vocal critic of the Maduro regime. His capture on January 3rd opened a window of hope for her, quietly and quickly clouded over as she watched the armed militias known as colectivos take to the streets of Caracas, the country's capital and the hometown. That is a dream, she said, in being able to safely return one day to Venezuela, even to visit. But it is not the reality yet. Her own asylum process took almost 9 years, Menendez said. Tens of thousands of her countrymen and her women are awaiting a decision in their own country asylum cases, but their prospects for success appear to be dimming. ICE is requesting case dismissals, then placing immigrants into a fast-track deportation process. Separately, ICE has begun asking judges to preemptively cancel asylum cases, a process called pre-termination, claiming immigrants have no right to seek protection in the United States because other countries like Honduras, Guatemala, Uganda have agreed to accept asylum seekers. Maduro may currently be detained in a Brooklyn jail to face U.S. drug trafficking charges, but Melendez said the Venezuelan government that endangered the lives and life holds of those who left is still largely intact. Mini headline, Venezuela and the Venezuelans became the face of mass immigration. The 770,000 Venezuelan immigrants living in the United States now represented just 2% of the nation's foreign-born population in 2023. This according to the Migration Policy Institute. But Venezuelans have also been one of the country's fastest-growing immigrant groups, with population that surged more than 300% between 2010 and 2023. Their dramatic arrival during the Biden administration, an exodus of families trudging in large group through the jungle of the Darien Gap, making the dangerous overload journey to the U.S.-Mexico border, captivated some Americans and engaged others. Venezuelan immigration figured prominently in the 2024 presidential campaign. Venezuelans became the face of this shift in migration that began in late 2021 of immigrants living at the border who did not know anybody and had nowhere to go, said Aaron Reichlin. Melnick, he's a senior fellow at the Nonpartisan American Immigration Council. When Trump took office, Venezuelans also became the face of his mass deportation campaign. The administration successfully pressured Venezuela to accept regular deportation flights before Maduro's ouster, but a relatively small number of Venezuelans were deported last year. 14,310 people between February and December, according to Human Rights First with Monitor's ICE flight. The number highlights a growing gulf in U.S. policy. Venezuelans who arrived in the United States during the Biden administration are not being allowed to stay. The administration cannot effectively send them all back, but returning to their homeland isn't for many a viable option. Nearly 8 million Venezuelans have fled the country in recent years. Some 7 million for neighboring countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. The night of Maduro's ouster was at least the second time in many years that Venezuelan policies kept Venezuelan American Patricia Andrade awake late into the night in Miami. The first time was the night of Venezuela's 2024 presidential election, which outside observers widely believe was stolen by Maduro. When the news of Maduro's capture hit on January 3rd, quote, at the beginning, everyone, and I mean everyone, says the author of the article, family, friends, neighbors, the priest, everyone was celebrating. I'm happy they removed Maduro because he needed to be removed. But if I'm being honest, I'm not celebrating anymore. What is left is worse. Headline, hoping Trump will make it safe to go home or safe to stay. Venezuela interim president Delcy Rodriguez and top leaders, including the Interior Minister and head of the armed forces, have sent mixed signals in the days since Maduro's ouster. After calling the Caravelos into the streets, the regime delayed more than a dozen journalists, including foreign correspondents, at Rodriguez's swearing in, and then released most of them a day later. Venezuelan officials on January 8th began releasing some political prisoners from two notorious prisons, but the National College of Journalists the next day denounced ongoing press persecution and called for the release of 22 still related communications professionals. And in conclusion, some different officials said, I have friends and family here without status, and obviously they're scared, said Gregory, a nationalized citizen. They got no choice but to sit tight and wait. Something's got to happen to give a little bit of peace to our people. A new law, something to give relief to the Venezuelan community. Quote, we cut off the snake's head in Venezuela, he said, but the snake is still moving. I have friends and family here without status, and obviously they are scared. They've got no choice but to sit tight and wait.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 14 minutes after the hour. Our next article is titled, DOJ had unit to defuse strife between police and protesters. Trump killed it. The ongoing nationwide protests and heightened tensions over recent shootings by federal immigration enforcement agents might seem like a good opportunity for the Justice Department to deploy its peacemaking unit that for decades de-escalated confrontations at demonstrations and helped prevent deadly police responses. But it can't because the Trump administration shut down the 57-person Community Relations Service unit in October. The DOJ has previously touted CRS since its 1964 founding for successfully coordinating communication among law enforcement, activists, clergy, city officials, and neighborhood leaders in some of the biggest flashpoints in modern history, including Selma, Alabama in 1965, after the bloody Sunday police attack on civil rights marchers and protesters and rioters that followed the 2020 police murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. It's very frustrating because I know that CRS could have had immediate value to peacemaking efforts in Minneapolis and in other places throughout the country, said Julius Nam, the former senior Justice Department official who ran the unit till he was given a reduction in force, or layoff, notice on September 29th. The unit shut down with Nam's layoff and shuttered its 30 field offices spread across the United States. As the Justice Department said, the unit's mission does not comport with the agency's law enforcement and litigating priorities. 6 years ago, CRS specialists deployed to Minneapolis to defuse the intensifying police protester clashes after an officer knelt on Floyd's neck until he was dead. That occurred just a few blocks from where a federal ICE agent shot and killed Renee Nicole Good on January 7th during a confrontation over her vehicle being in the middle of the street. Good slaying prompted protests around the country after the Trump administration and Department of Homeland Security said ICE agent Jonathan Ross was acting in self-defense. Viral videos of the incident show Ross fired at least 2 of the 3 shots that struck Good from the side of her vehicle as she was pulling away. Subsequent tense interactions with law enforcement have been captured on video, such as one in which a DHS officer deliberately kicked over a candle placed at a memorial for Good. On January 8th, Border Patrol agents shot 2 people during an attempted traffic stop in Portland, Oregon. After Floyd's murder, CRS specialists held weekly meetings that led to city, law enforcement, and community leaders identifying steps for reducing conflict. It also led to an updated memorandum of understanding between law enforcement and community groups to deter further riots and police use of force. I know CRS could have de-escalated the violence that's already happening, and it's likely to spread even more, Nam said, who was the Justice Department civil rights prosecutor before running CRS, said of the current conflict. Olivia Troy, a White House Homeland Security official in the first Trump administration, said CRS exists for moments exactly like this.
Son of a gun.
After a federal shooting like what's happened in Minnesota, CRS should be helping to de-escalate tensions and rebuild trust in the community. But that capacity was deliberately weakened, said Troy, who has since become a vocal critic of Trump. CRS exists to exert accountability before confrontation, create space for facts to surface, grievances to be heard and restrained. Without it, the federal government is left policing its own actions in real time, while communities are left with protests or silence as their only options. Criminologist and civil rights attorney Brian Levin said CRS shutdown deprives the country of an effective program to defuse the political violence that has skyrocketed in years. In response to questions about the closure of CRS, White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson told USA Today that ICE officers in Minnesota and elsewhere have conducted themselves with the utmost professionalism to help make American communities safer. Left-wing agitators don't need mediators, they need to follow the law, Jackson said, while declining to comment on CRS. Interfering with law enforcement operations is a crime, and anyone doing so will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. The CRS was established by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 after Congress concluded it needed to come to grips with increasingly violent clashes over civil rights enforcement. School desegregation, voting rights, and public accommodation battles, especially across the South, that led to shootings and beatings of black Americans by white counter-protesters and police. Congress concluded not all of civil rights crises could be solved by lawsuits, arrests, or federal force. Lawmakers and President Lyndon B. Johnson called for a neutral, trusted federal presence that could step in early, bring opposing sides together, and prevent bloodshed. CRS's first major test came most immediately during the civil rights marches in Selma, 1965, when conciliators helped negotiate a safe path forward across the Edmund Pettus Bridge after violent police crackdowns. That cemented the idea of dialogue and mediation could succeed where force failed. CRS teams also defused the riots in Memphis, Tennessee after the April 4, 1968 assassination of the Reverend Martin Luther King. Memphis remained peaceful due in part to the work that began earlier that year when CRS provided conciliation services during a sanctioned worker strike and met with members of the black community, religious leaders, and gang members to prevent an escalation of violence during the strike. Dozens of other efforts followed, including during the Boston school desegregation crisis in the 1970s, during the infamous neo-Nazi march in Skokie, Illinois in 1977, and following the Rodney King police beating in the subsequent riots in Los Angeles in the early 1900s. More recently, CRS teams deployed around the country to de-escalate conflicts after a series of police killings of black Americans, including Trayvon Martin in Florida, 2013, Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and in South Carolina in 2015, after white supremacist Dylan Roof killed 9 people worshiping in Charleston's historically African-American Mother Emanuel Church. Before it was dismantled in 2025, CRS had 57 employees, with about 20 at DOJ headquarters in Washington and the rest spread across its 30 field offices. The agency was effectively on life support after a March 25th memo announced as one of the DOJ priorities, eliminating CRS, eliminating the Community Relations Service, and moving some or all impacted employees to U.S. attorneys' offices. In the June 13 Justice Department FY 2026 budget and performance summary went further. The department eliminates CRS and its functions, a total of 56 positions. Some employees took the fork in the road buyouts offered by the Trump administration. NAM and the dozen who so stayed on received layoff notices and left in October. Those employees would initially be placed somewhere within the USA pending leadership guidance, according to a copy of the letter provided by NAM. The EOUS provides support for the nation's 93 U.S. attorneys. And lastly, it says that does not mean restoration of the agency. It remains to be seen whether the employee's return will be first step toward the restoration of the agency, or whether the employees will be assigned to some other components, NAM said.
Okay, this might screw things up. Yeah. Next article. Citizens can record ICE, but cannot interfere with ICE. Minnesota woman's death puts the rights at issue. It's an article by Kate Sharon for the Indianapolis Star USA Today Network. A federal immigration agent's fatal shooting of a woman in Minnesota has sparked questions about the public's right to observe officers. Amid a large-scale operation in the state, an immigration and customs enforcement agent shot and killed a 37-year-old woman January 7th in Minneapolis. The Department of Homeland Security said the agent was acting in self-defense, but city and state officials dispute that account. U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar, a Democrat from Minnesota, said, "The woman killed was a legal observer. She was shot while in a car, which local law enforcement said was blocking the street." Quote, "Make no mistake, what happened in Minnesota is not about free speech niceties," said Ken Paulson, director of the Free Speech Center of Middle Tennessee State University. "If they disobey the police officer, they can be arrested, but under no circumstances can they be shot. This is less about free speech than the exercise of power." President Donald Trump has defended the agent involved in the shooting and cast blame on the radical left. Here's what rights Americans have to observe ICE agents and other law enforcement. First, Americans have the right to observe, but not interfere. Americans have a First Amendment right to observe and record law enforcement and other government employees while they are doing their jobs publicly. This according to several First Amendment organizations. However, people do not have the right to interfere with officers doing their jobs. Police can impose reasonable limits, Paulson said, often distancing the public and the media from the scene. That does not mean a citizen should defy an officer's order because they believe it's unconstitutional. Quote, "If you're told to move back, you're free to state your objection, but always obey the officer's instruction," he said. "We'll fight that battle in front of a judge, not at the location." Another bold print thing. Local, state, and federal officials are subject to observation. People have the right to observe law enforcement and other government officials, regardless of the level of government they work in. What happens when states try to restrict access? A host of state legislators have passed laws that would enshrine a buffet zone around crime series, though they largely have not passed legal muster. An Arizona law that banned recording police within 8 feet was struck down as unconstitutional. An Indiana 25-foot buffer law was struck down after a federal appeals court found the law was unconstitutionally vague. Florida, Tennessee, and Louisiana have also passed laws that are being litigated in court. Courts have not reached a consensus on how far is too far. So what is a legal observer, you ask? Legal observers typically are citizens who watch, document, and record interactions between police and protesters. Grassroots networks of these citizens seek to hold law enforcement accountable and act as a third party to observe arrests and other incidents according to the American Civil Rights Liberties Union. This practice has become far more commonplace with the rise of smartphones, and after a bystander recorded the death of George Floyd by a police officer in Minneapolis in 2020. And finally, in the article, the right to protest. Americans are free to protest thanks to the rights enshrined in the First Amendment, but those rights do have limits. For example, governments can impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, such as limiting noise at certain times. In a news conference January 7th, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz urged the public to stay calm and protest peacefully following the ICE shooting. Police can break up and disperse a protest if there is a danger of a riot, a clear public safety threat, or issues blocking traffic. Final sentence. Contributing Christopher Kahn and Michael Lorca, the USA Today network coverage of First Amendment issues is funded through a collaboration between the Freedom Forum and journalism funding partners. Funders do not provide editorial inputs.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour, which means we turn to the money section of USA Today. And our first article is titled, U.S. Trade Deficit Sinks in October. Tariffs take a bite, restricting flow of goods. The U.S. trade gap narrowed in October. A government report released January 8th showed. The trade deficit in goods and services was $29.4 billion, down 39% from $48.1 billion in September, as tariffs restricted the flow of goods around the globe. Imports were down 3.2% to $331 billion, the Commerce Department said, while exports rose 2.6% to $302 billion. The trading economics consensus had been a wider deficit of $59 billion. Shrinking the trade gap, in particular by encouraging U.S. exports, is a key goal of the White House aggressive tariff policies, but some experts caution that the October data may not reflect that. Ultimately, the sharp narrowing in the October trade deficit is almost entirely due to the movement of gold. Economists at Wells Fargo wrote an analysis out after the release. That unusual move is likely to be reversed in coming months, they said. The government is still getting caught up with the economic indicators delayed during the shutdown, and we're still months away from our first look at 2026 trade flows, they had. You ready, Tom?
No.
Okay, let me do another article then here. At CES 2026, numerous robots show the future is here. CES always brought robots, some useful, some confusing, some that feel like movie props that wandered into the wrong conference. 2026, there's a real shift. Robots aren't trying to be as sci-fi anymore. They're trying to be helpful, or at least comforting, or at the very least adorable. Here are the standouts. LG Cloyd, that's C-L-O-I-D, your future housemate who folds towels, eventually. LG's Cloyd prototype is the closest thing there is to a main character robot I've seen yet. It's a home helper created to fold laundry, prep dinner, fetch you a drink, and check in on how you're doing when you walk in the front door after work. Its head doubles as an AI home hub, screens, speakers, cameras, sensors, so it can talk, respond, and even coordinate your LG appliances. Think, start the oven, turn up the heat, warm me up, I'm cold and cranky. Reality check? It took nearly 2 minutes to fold one towel, and the result looked like a toddler helped. So Rosie from the Jetsons is safe. But directionally, this is where home robots are heading. First support, sci-fi second. They're in their brick cell phone from the early 1980s phase. If Cloyd is the companion robot, Atlas is the industrial athlete. Built for factories, it stands just over 6 feet tall with cameras, radar, and 56 joints that let it lift, squat, twist, and carry up to 100 pounds. The big idea? Not replacing people, protecting them from dangerous, repetitive work. In a very robot move, when the battery dies, Atlas swaps itself out. Hyundai expects Atlas on factory floors by June of 2028. This is one robot that truly exists to help people, not be one. Then we have Tombot Jenny, the robotic puppy designed for comfort. Jenny, the Labrador pup, wins my unofficial cutest robot at CES award by a mile. She's soft, cuddly, and honestly one of the most heartwarming tech products I've ever seen. The robot pup is designed for people who need the comfort of a lapdog without the responsibility. especially those living with Alzheimer's, dementia, anxiety, or autism. It's not a toy, and it's not trying to replace a real pet. Genie is a healthcare device built to soothe, to help caregivers monitor patterns like sundowning, when confusion and agitation spike later in the day. I've covered therapy bots before and know firsthand how well they work for people who need memory care. Jenny tracks your face, responds to touch and sounds, moves gently when you interact, and even gives a little bark when you call her name. Tombot programmed about 1,500 natural behaviors so interactions feel calm and familiar without pretending she's alive. And yes, Jimmy Henson's Creature Shop helped design her, which explains why she feels so real it almost breaks your heart. And then there's Sweekar, the AI companion that grows up with you. Now for the weirdest and maybe sweetest robot here, check out Sweekar. It isn't a helper, it's not a pet, it's more like a Gen X Tamagotchi with emotional awareness. It starts with an egg as you care for it. You literally change its shape and personality over time using generative AI. You nurture it, it adapts, because uniquely yours. Is it strange? Absolutely. Is it pure CES energy? 100%. Do you want 1 or 6? Yes. Yes, I do. Then you have Luba 3, the robot lawnmower that actually understands a yard. Robot mowers aren't new, but Luba 3 is one of the first that feels ready for real-world lawns. No perimeter wires, no complicated setup. You map your yard once with your phone, and Luba uses cameras, sensors, and GPS, accurate with about a centimeter, to keep track of where it is. It handles hills, curves, weird edges, trees, kids' toys, and detects 300 plus obstacles while staying surprisingly quiet. Translation: this was indeed need babysitting, won't actually eat a hose. It's available now. Prices start around $2,300. Roborock Ceros Rover, the stair climbing vacuum. The robot vacuums a once sworn enemy, stairs, in a Roborock Ceros Rover, which uses angled legs to climb, slowly but very deliberately, step by step. In demos, it took about 40 seconds to clear 5 big steps, cleaning each one on the way up. Not speedy, but still impressive. Pricing isn't official yet, but nor is its release date, but don't faint when you hear the number in the $2,500 plus range. How about Apier Scuba V3, the pool cleaner actually knows what's dirty. The Apier Scuba V3 is a pool cleaner that actually knows what it's cleaning. Use a cognitive AI and onboard vision to spot dirt in real time and focus only where it's needed, cutting run-up time by 40% and delivering results up to 10 times faster. Why do you care? Cleans faster, misses fewer spots, and wastes less energy while you do nothing. It's lightweight, cordless, and truly drop in and go, with no babysitting required. And privacy matters here. All camera data stays on the device, never uploaded or stored elsewhere. This one's available in Q1 of 2026 and starts around $1,100. So, what does all this add up to is the headline here. Robots aren't some far-off future anymore. They're arriving slowly, awkwardly, sometimes adorably, in our actual everyday lives. If CES 2026 is any sign, they won't replace us. They'll just be there beside us, folding towels, mowing lawns, keeping people safe, and offering comfort when it matters most. Not sci-fi, just real life. And yes, in our lifetime.
Uh-huh. That's an article about robots. Now, this next article is about human beings and buying a home. Is want to buy a home in 2026, but you have a tight budget, or friends of yours have a tight budget? Here's an article by Medora Lee for USA Today. The weather outside might be frightful, but pull on your boots and your coat and get out if you're looking to buy a home. Why? Because January is the month for bargains, Lending Tree says. January offers the biggest savings according to the financial products comparison site that analyzed the housing market between January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 24. Buyers can save an average of $23,400 compared with those who purchase a 1,500 square foot home in May, the most expensive month of the year, it said. Potentially, saving $23,400 is significant and could be especially welcome news for first-time home buyers who don't have to sell a home first, experts said. Last year, the share of first-time home buyers reached a record low as home prices continued to linger near record highs, the National Association of Realtors said. Buying in January, that's now, can shave tens of thousands off the cost of homemaking, something affordable that might not have been otherwise, said Matt Schultz, who's Lending Tree's Chief Consumer Finance Analyst. How about some additional savings? Let's see what that means. The lower home price can also unlock other hidden savings, Schultz said. It can also make it a little easier to reach 20% with a down payment, which is huge, he said. If you reach that magic 20% mark for a down payment, you can avoid paying private mortgage insurance, which can make a major difference in your monthly payments. Lenders generally require private mortgage insurance when a homebuyer makes a down payment of less than 20% of the home's purchase price in order to protect themselves in case of default. You can't buy in January? Don't worry, says the article. If you can't get yourself together to buy a home in January, Schultz said, February is, guess what, the next best inexpensive month. Price per square foot in January is $178,060, followed by February's $183,070, Lending Tree said. Bold print, potentially saving $23,000 is significant, and it could be especially welcome news for first-time home buyers who don't have to sell a home first, experts said. From there, prices rise every month, peaking at $194,020 per square foot in May before easing again. Here's the breakdown of each month's per square foot cost to help with your home hunting. Even if you are not looking to buy a home, you may have friends and relatives who do. January, $178.60. February, $183. March, $187. And it goes on in April, $190, May, $194. And in the cooler months, in October, $189, November, $188, December, $187. Does size matter? Size does not matter, according to the article, when looking at homes in January. Data show median prices per square foot always bottom out in January, no matter what the home size is. What's the downside to buying a home in the winter, which is where we are? There may be fewer buyers to compete with and more selling people willing to negotiate during the winter. But there are also fewer homes to consider. From July 2016 through June 25, February had the fewest listings at 7.1 million, and July had the most at nearly 10 million homes for sale. Last paragraph on what home costs are going to be and are. When buying a home in January or February, Savings can be significant, Schultz said. Just know that there's a risk involved. For example, there may not be as many homes available to choose from, or you may not get as much money for your home when you sell your home.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Our next article is titled Wage Garnishments to Begin for Student Loan Borrowers, Officials Said. The federal government has officially resumed garnishing wages and withholding benefits from student loan borrowers after years of legal limbo. The Trump administration has made several moves to limit repayment options and enforce collection after an extended COVID-era pause. The Federal Education Department announced a proposed legal agreement to squash the Savings on a Valuable Education, or SAVE, plan in December of 2025, dealing a final blow to the Biden administration's efforts to forgive or reduce the $200 billion burden of repayment on 5 million federal borrowers. More than 7 million SAVE borrowers have been in administrative forbearance, not requiring payment since June 2024. Interest on their debts restarted in August of last year, and the administration announced plans to resume wage garnishment on borrowers behind on payments beginning January 7th, according to reports. Here's what to know about who's at risk of having money taken from their paycheck. If you miss a payment or two on your federal student loans, you won't automatically be in bad standing. Your loan will become delinquent on the first day after you miss a payment, usually resulting in late fees or potential dings to your credit score, according to the Federal Student Aid Office of the Department of Education. If you go long enough without making a payment, your loans may go into default, at which time the government can begin involuntary collections, automatically taking money out of your paychecks, tax refund, or other federal benefits. So, what is wage garnishment? Well, wage garnishment is a legal process in which money is withheld from an employee's paycheck to pay back a debt. The money is collected by employers and sent to the relative creditors, usually after a court order or other legal notice. Common reasons for wage garnishment include child support, student loan debt, credit card debt, bankruptcy, or unpaid taxes, according to ADP, a company that provides payroll processing. An employer can face steep fines or legal penalties for failing to garnish the employee's wages. The amount that can be withheld from a paycheck is dependent on the type of debt owed, state and federal law. Garnishment stops after the debt's been repaid. The garnishment order revoked or the period of time set out in the order ends. So what's the Treasury Offset Program? What can it collect from you? The Treasury Offset Program is the centralized government program for collecting debts owed to federal and state agencies, such as child support and defaulted loans. The term Treasury Offset is used by the FSA office, refers to the government's ability to withhold your tax refund or other federal benefits, such as Social Security checks, as a form of repayment. Well, then who's at risk of involuntary collections on student loans? Only people who have student loans in default are at risk of wage garnishment or other withholdings. For your federal student loans to be considered in default, you must have missed 270 days of payment. You will then receive a letter from the Department of Education Default Resolution Group outlining how much you owe and what steps you can take to resolve the default status, including applying for relief, a smaller monthly payment, or requesting a hearing, according to the FSA office. If you don't make a payment or take action to resolve the issue for more than 360 days, the government can begin garnishing your wages or recouping the debt in other ways without a court order. they plan to use Treasury offset to recoup the fundings, you receive a notification by mail from the U.S. Department of Treasury at least 65 days before the withholding begins. In the case of federal student loans, the government can hold up to 15% of your paycheck, 100% of your tax refund, and up to 25% of your Social Security benefits.
Trader Joe's. The headline says, Trader Joe's tote bags have found fans where? Abroad. The hope for Trader Joe's tote bags has gone global, from trick-or-treat mini canvas tote bags to micro-totes. The adorable bags have amassed a cult-like following among the store's customers and fashion-forward people. Despite the Black Friday-esque lines, limited quantities, and third-party resellers listing the bags for exorbitant prices, the tote is considered a must-have as fans show up each time a new batch is released in store. Dubbed quintessentially American, Trader Joe's totes, both inexpensive and cute, are a display of cultural capital, said Holly Davis, who's an audio maker and an environmental campaigner, in an interview with podcast articles of interest. Trader Joe's totes have found fans here in the country and abroad. In addition to being placed on well-known commerce platforms like eBay and Mercari, a practice Trader Joe's says it neither condones nor supports the totes have been listed across international marketplaces like Coupang, Depop, and Karat for up to $10,000. Can you believe that for a tote?
Jesus.
Because there are no Trader Joe stores abroad, resale prices such as those listed for American consumers are often exorbitantly higher than the price paid in store. Trader Joe's bags don't typically cost more than $20, so it's easy for anyone who visits stores to purchase multiple bags and list them at any price. Michelle Gabriel, a lecturer at the Yale School of Environment, told the Wall Street Journal that the bags, regardless of the size or style, represent a limitation. Trader Joe's aren't in every city, and they certainly aren't on every corner, Gabriel told the newspaper. That already imparts a scarcity that, in a world of easy, accessible overconsumption, can be used in service of status. Learned about the clout of the TJ's bag recently when I was checking it out, says the author of the article. At one store, and I observed the cashier that the person behind me had no fewer than 24 totes in her cart. And it was like, oh yeah, they're huge in other countries. It's like a status symbol or something. Kushioya wrote in January 5th post on X. One user said they beg any and all of their friends who visit the States to bring back Trader Joe's tote bags. Can someone please explain to me why everyone in London is carrying these Trader Joe's tote bags as their bags? Another user wrote in January 7th X post. It's a grocery bag for a store that doesn't even exist in London, and I'm so confused. Some buyers travel the world in search of products. And the final comment here is social media, chatter, and think pieces inside. Trader Joe's is just grateful for the support. Our buyers travel the world in search of products we believe are exceptional and will find a following among our customers. Trader Joe's said this in a statement, and the final sentence in the article is, we at Trader Joe's appreciate that our customers connect with our products whatever they are in the world, even if it's, what was the order, $10,000?
Yeah, $10,000.
Amazing.
Yeah. Our last article for this half hour is titled Texas and Florida are most popular for relocation. Don't mess with Texas. When it comes to relocations anyway, the Lone Star State was back on top of the list of states to which most Americans moved in 2025, according to the annual roundup from U-Haul, the truck rental company. In 2025, Texas was the #1 growth state for seventh time in 10 years. Last year, it came in second behind South Carolina. Also in the top 5, Florida, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Those 5 states also made up the top 5 in 2024 and 23, the company said. Americans are opting for sunshine and warm weather when they decide where to move, U-Haul said. 8 of the top 10 located in the South, contrast to 8 of the top bottom states. Those with the most out-migration are northern states. Among the business losers are California at number 50, followed by Illinois, New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts. It was the Golden State's 6th straight year in last place, though it saw a smaller net loss of residents in 2024 than in the previous year, the release explained. Blue to red state migration, a hotly debated political topic that became more pronounced after the pandemic of 2020, continues to be a discernible trend, U-Haul said in a release accompanying the report. 7 of the top 10 growth states currently feature Republican governors, and 9 of those states went red in the last presidential election, the release added. Conversely, 9 of the bottom 10 growth states featured Democratic governors, and 7 of those states went blue in the last presidential election. Weather patterns and political decisions aside, we continue to find that life circumstances, marriage, children, a death in the family, college jobs, and other events dictate the needs for most moves.
You have been listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for the 12th day of January on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings shortly. Your readers today are Tom Travers and
Tom Scanlon.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers remain Tom Scanlon and
Tom Travers.
As always, we turn to the sports section for the beginning of the second hour. And our first article is titled U.S. Champ Ilya Malinin Officially an Olympian. Dateline St. Louis. The surest thing in the Winter Olympics world over the past several years has come to pass. Ilya Malinin, son of Olympians, is now officially an Olympian himself. Spinning mid-ice as his music came to an end, his blonde hair rippling, the 21-year-old Malinin nodded approvingly as he finished his long program, knowing it accomplished what he came to in the 2026 U.S. Figure Skating Championships too. The quad god toned down considerably Saturday night, January 10th, landing just 3 quadruple jumps compared with the 7 he uncorked a month ago at the Grand Prix final. He's having issues with the new skates he's been breaking in for the rest of the season. Since there was no challenger even close to him in these nationals, he didn't have to push himself or press his luck. I decided to take a little more safe course, he said afterward. I was a little unsure what I was going to do, so I decided not to go for any risks. I'm sure in a few weeks the skates will be in perfect condition. Funny being so good and so much better than everyone else that you can basically glide through your national championships into the Olympics. That's how talented Malinin is. The Milan Winter Olympics will present an entirely different storyline, but Malinin is predicted to win there as well. One messy night of men's skating, a distinct contrast from the excellent women's event here the night before. Malin won by more than 50 points, finished with 324 points to 267 for the second place finisher, Andrew Torgashev. Maxim Naumov, who lost both his parents in the mid-air collision over Washington nearly a year ago, finished a surprising third with 250 points. Jason Brown, age 31, the venerable artist on the ice, did a very difficult skate with multiple mistakes and dropped to 8th place. So the story was Malinin, as has been in American men's skating since 1922, Beijing Winter Olympics ended. This was his 4th consecutive men's national title. But this time an Olympic berth was attached. How fitting is that for his family? Be the 5th Olympics for all of them. His mother, Titania Malina, competed at 10 consecutive World Figure Skating Championships for Uzbekistan. She finished 8th at the 1998 Winter Olympics in Nagano, the competition in which Tara Lipinski won the gold medal and Michelle Kwan the silver. Milenia finished 4th at the 1999 World Championships as well. She also competed at the 2022 Lake City Olympics, but withdrew after a short program with the flu. Malinin's father, Roman Sikornikov, represented Uzbekistan at the same 2 Olympics in 1998 and 2002, finishing 19th both times. They were married in 2000 and became skating coaches in the United States, moving to the Northern Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C., where in December 2004 Ilya was born. He took the Russian masculine form of his mother's last name because his parents were concerned that Sikornikov was too difficult to pronounce. No one's having any problem in pronouncing Malinin. It is, after all, the name of the United States' newest, most promising Olympic star.
How about recognition? What do you think about charmed bears? This next article, remember it's the sports section, says charmed bears are now legendary. Maybe this really is the Chicago Bears season. It's about the only way to explain it. Trailing their arch rivals by 18, with coach Ben Johnson repeatedly getting too cute for his own good, and quarterback Caleb Williams getting outplayed by Jordan Love, it sure looked as if the Bears were headed for the off-season. And who's to tell the Bears differently, especially after this one? Now, what's this one? The only option we had was to put out there and be legendary, Williams said, after the Bears' improbable 31-27 wild card win Saturday night, January 10th. Their first playoff win in almost 15 years and their largest postseason comeback in franchise history. The Bears now will play the Philadelphia Eagles or Los Angeles Rams. Charmed? The Bears might not be the best team left in the NFL playoffs. They might not have the best players. They certainly don't have the experience, with Johnson in his first year as a head coach and Williams in his second season. But chemistry and karma cannot be discounted. This is a Chicago team that believes in each other, and that faith has been borne out time and time again. This was the seventh game in which the Bears had come back to win in the fourth quarter, and the second time in 3 weeks they rallied to beat their neighbors to the north. At first, the cardiac comebacks were written off as the Bears getting lucky, or their opponents falling apart at an inopportune time, and Chicago being the beneficiary. But you don't do this week after week after week without feeling good, or being battle-tested at least. If a Bears team that is new to the playoffs can score 25 points in the final 15 minutes, with Williams throwing for 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion in the last 4 minutes, maybe, just maybe, it's simply meant to be. Maybe the stars are aligning with the universe, has decided a team that's been so woeful for so long, it's their turn. Now is a good time to point out that Pope Leo XIV, appointed in May, is a Chicago native and a Bears fan. Okay. Quote, to be in those situations and to come out victorious, well, it's no fluke. It's no, oh, this happened, we're lucky, Williams said, a bit of an edge in his voice. We've done it multiple times this year. It's been proven for us to be a great second-half team, but the Bears had to be better than great. They had to be near perfect. They had to be, as Williams said, legendary. The Bears trailed by 18 at the half, a hole largely of their own making. Johnson got cute with his play calling, converting on 1 4th down early in the second quarter, and thinking that meant a green light to keep doing it. But Williams got picked on the 4th down attempt and couldn't convert on another one. And both failures led the Packers touchdowns that gave them a 21-3 lead. It's not sustainable. I don't know. As a team, it's just resiliency and knowing that late in the fourth quarter that it's really when we're at our best as a football team. The Bears had not overcome a double-figure deficit this season, but there was no fiery speech in the locker room, no panic, just a reminder to keep plugging away, do the things the Bears have done all year long. And with 2 players on the Bears roster who were on the field for New England's epic comeback over the Atlantic Falcons in Super Bowl 51, a reminder that it could, after all, be done. Carlos Santos' kick started the offensive revival with a pair of field goals, and then, in the fourth quarter, Williams was at his best, as he's been so many times this season. Williams and Colson Loveland connected for 20 yards plus completions. And before finding Olamide Zacchaeus for an 8-yard score, Williams and Loveland connected on the 2-point conversion, and Green Bay's lead was now 27-24. After McManus missed a field goal on Green Bay's next possession, Williams wasted no time in getting the lead. He took the Bears 66 yards in a little more than a minute, capping the drive with a 25-yard TD pass. Pure belief, that's all you need, Williams said. All I said to the guys was, you don't need to be Superman. You don't need to go and do anything crazy. Just go out and do the things and focus, do your job. So the belief was there, the trust was there, and they went out there and made the plays. Last paragraph. This year has been a special year, Williams, the coach said. The guys that we have in this building are unmatched. The brotherhood, the bond that we have is unmatched. And so we want to keep this going. Some teams are just charmed, and it sure feels as if these Bears are one of the charmed ones today. So go Bears.
There's another football article. Stafford and Williams come up clutch late. Even in opening with a doubleheader of rematches, the NFL playoffs managed to open with a bit of the unexpected. The January 10th, Saturday afternoon slot of the wild card round often produces a dud, but that was hardly the case this season. The Los Angeles Rams, who are a heavy favorite and a popular pick to be the NFC's Super Bowl representative, found themselves with a legitimate challenge from the Carolina Panthers, needing to regroup in the final minutes to push ahead for a 34-31 win. But the biggest thrills would come from the Chicago Bears, who you just heard about in Tom's article. After the first half, a second-year signal caller seemed destined for an off-season of unfounded questions on whether he could deliver in the crunch time. So much for that narrative. Williams engineered a turnaround that will go down as an all-timer for the franchise, further entrenching the notion that these are hardly the same old Bears. From the off-kilter offensive execution to some questionable game management in the early going, Johnson invited plenty of scrutiny with the Bears' lackluster start out of the gate. Coach is due for a reprieve, however, after authoring a historic breakthrough for the franchise. Johnson helped the Bears rediscover their explosive form late, despite facing a difficult landscape that forced the attack to be one-dimensional, with the team scoring 25 points in the fourth quarter alone. Forget Offensive Rookie of the Year, the Bears tight end is closing out his inaugural pro campaign as the league's most lethal first-year weapon. Loveland finished with a game-high 137 yards and 8 catches and a 2-point conversion, repeatedly roasting Green Bay on outbreaking routes. The Michigan product became the first rookie tight end with 100-plus receiving yards in a playoff game since Keith Jackson in 1988. The Packers received fumbling of an onside kick that precipitated Green Bay's collapse in the Week 16 overtime loss against Chicago. This time around, he can't be blamed for the Packers folding. Dobbs led Green Bay with 124 yards and a touchdown on 8 catches. With the offense sputtering late, he stepped up on several occasions to snag critical first downs. Don't be surprised if he pulls down a hefty sum in a couple of months when he figures to be one of the most attractive options in a booming receiver market. Matthew Golden, he should have heard about going without a touchdown as a rookie anymore. Packers' first-round receiver finally found the end zone on a dazzling 23-yard fourth-quarter catch and run, during which he slipped several defenders. Golden had capped an underwhelming season with 84 yards on 4 catches. Better things and a bigger role should be ahead in 2 years. Matthew Stafford's late heroics. The final stat line, 24 of 42, 304 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception, was sure a lot prettier than the actual play for most of the day. After a sizzling start, Stafford spent a good chunk of his day misfiring or otherwise struggling to come up with answers for Carolina's defense. With a finger injury late in the first half seemingly exacerbating the issues. But with the Rams facing a 4-point deficit in the final 3 minutes, Stafford slung the offense 71 yards by completing 6 of 7 throws, capping his effort with a sublime scoring strike to tight end Colby Parkinson. With things not clicking on the perimeter, Stafford did his most significant damage by shredding the cover 3 looks that the Panthers opened with, and for some reason returned too late. Not the kind of effort that quarterback and his team will want to reprise, especially considering how shaky things were when Carolina generated pressure. But only a select few signal callers are capable of pulling out of a tailspin and delivering the results. And there's Jalen Coker on a team that has spent first-round draft picks on wide receivers in successive years. Who was a former undrafted free agent who powered a Panthers aerial attack that sometimes looked lifeless this season. Coker's 134 receiving yards were not only a career high, but more than half of the Panthers' total in that category. The second-year wideout also hauled in Bryce Young's perfectly delivered go-ahead touchdown throw on a corner route late in the fourth quarter. Coker's disconnect with Young in the first quarter led to an interception that deepened the Panthers' early hole, so his day wasn't without error. Still, it looks like the perfect complement to Offensive Rookie of the Year frontrunner Teotaro McMillan for our California passing game that will look to take off in earnest this coming year. Then there's some losers in this whole mess. Prior to the game, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reported Saturday that LaFleur and Packers brass plan to meet after the conclusion of the season to discuss a contract extension, with the coach's deal currently set to expire after next season. Safe to say that summit's bound to be a bit more awkward now. Given the injuries that crippled what looked to be a title-ready roster, Green Bay faded down the stretch, as is at least somewhat understandable, but capping a 4-game losing streak to end the regular season with a multifaceted meltdown against a rival is a devastating way to go out. Jordan Love roasted Chicago early with play action, with the offense scoring touchdowns on each of its first 3 drives. From there on, Green Bay was out of sorts, at times barely able to move the ball. Yes, the defense and special teams also wilted after halftime, but LaFleur is ultimately responsible for those slip-ups too. Though standing as one of NFL's premier play callers and offensive architects is unimpeachable, LaFleur had too often been at the center of these kinds of setbacks. Maybe parting with a coach who's 76-41-1 and has reached the postseason in 6 or 7 seasons will prove unpalatable for Packers president CEO Ed Policy, who's facing his first off-season in the role. But LaFleur said after the game, this one's going to hurt for a really, really long time. Another loser, Brandon McManus. It wouldn't be a Packers implosion without special teams playing a prominent role. McManus missed both of his field goal attempts as well as extra point. It was a brutal outcome for a player signed to a 3-year extension just 10 months ago, said McManus after the game. An embarrassing performance. It's the most disappointing part of my career right now.
The whole damn thing went just pressing something on.
Let me cue up another one here, Tom.
Yeah, I had one on the Cubs.
Our next article then will be Wild Tricks laying canter on a slopestyle team. So this is for the Winter Olympics. Dateline, Aspen, Colorado. The screen showing the slopestyle competition cut to the black for the biggest trick of the day. Jay Cantor made sure it would be live on and replays for a long time. The 22-year-old landed a 1980 backside twist, although spectators were momentarily left in the dark, and finished his second run clean Saturday, January 10th, in the men's final at the 2026 U.S. Grand Prix. The judges rewarded him with the top score of 85.16 to take home first and lock up his spot, 104, on the U.S. men's slopestyle/big air Olympic team.
Damn it.
Cantor, of course, had no idea everybody near the finish line was left feeling like they relived the finals of The Sopranos. I remember landing it so clearly, Cantor said, who hadn't tried the 1980 in 2 months. It felt crazy. Spent a lot of autumn trying to figure out the 1980, an extra half revolution, 180 degrees, from the more common 1800, which he hit during his first run. Stepping up in the second run landed him atop the podium. Like many of his teammates, Cantor had his own comeback story. Trampoline accident when he was 16 resulted in traumatic brain injury. Spent a week in the hospital, and after he awoke from a coma, pass the time watching snowboarding videos. A Colorado kid, Cantor spent a lot of time in Aspen's Four Mountains while growing up. I know these jumps on this mountain pretty well, he said. Cantor received a call from U.S. Ski and Snowboard Director of High Performance, Gillian Bauer, who informed him he made the Olympic team. I can't believe this is happening, to be in this position. I'm so grateful, so thankful, he said. Really means the world. It's everything I wanted. His first call will go to his mother, who now has to book some flights to Italy, Cantor said. Red Gerard, the 2018 slopestyle gold medalist, finished sixth. The final two spots will be determined after the World Cup, the season in Lac, Switzerland. On the women's side, Jamie Anderson took a terrible fall onto her second run of finals. She did not take a second run, but organizers said she was okay. A teenager spoiled an All-American podium in the men's free ski halfpipe finals. Finlay Melville Ives, 19, wowed the crowd and the judges with a first run 95.0. Nobody could touch that in the second run, and the New Zealander took home first place. Americans placed second through seventh, with Hunter Les locking up his spot on the highly competitive Olympic roster thanks to a second place finish.
Can you stand another thing about the Chicago Cubs? This says, Bregman to Cubs is part of a special night. Baseball. Simply, it was the greatest sports evening in Chicago since 2016. While the Chicago Bears were making arguably the greatest comeback in franchise history against the Green Bay Packers on Saturday night, January 10th, in the NFL playoffs, the Chicago Cubs, the baseball team, were making their biggest free agent splash in a decade with a 5-year, $175 million agreement with infielder Alex Bregman. So, while the Bears were coming back from a 21-3 halftime deficit to win 31-27, Boras and the Cubs, the baseball team, were actually in the middle of negotiations. Bears game? Boras texted USA Today Sports, "I was packing the green for the Briggy with the Cubs." Oh, did he ever. The Cubs, who tried to sign Bregman a year ago to a 4-year, $115 million deal, got their man and stole him away from the Boston Red Sox, with the richest salary in Cubs history. And after listening to critics all winter saying that they haven't made enough moves to spend enough money to make themselves World Series contenders, or at least better than the Milwaukee Brewers in the National Central League, they shelled out a big cash after acquiring Miami Marlins starter Edward Cabrera just 3 days ago. Just like that, the Cubs baseball have got folks in Chicago believing it could be 2016 all over again, the year they won their first World Series since 1908. Certainly, Bregman, remember the name, 31, is a huge winner. He opted out of the $80 million owed to him in the next 2 years by the Boston Red Sox and spun into a franchise record $35 million a year deal with full no trade and no opt-outs. The only Cubs contracts better in total value is a person named Jason Haywood's 8-year, ready, $184 million contract, and shortstop Dansby Swanson's $177 million contract as a shortstop. No matter, the Cubs feel as if they're set and have Bregman's leadership skills, as he has been in the playoffs every full year of his 10-year career. This is why the Red Sox badly wanted to bring in back and were runner-up to the negotiations. The Arizona Diamondbacks also had interested, but once they decided to retain all-star baseman Katamarki, they dropped out of the Bregman race. Bregman, who hit .273 with an 8-1 on-base percentage with 18 homers, is considered his years older than Cody Binger. It perhaps illustrates by his why he is in good contention. Bregman's signing now leaves the Red Sox badly needing Bo Bichette, whoever that is, and who also is being courted by the Philadelphia Phillies, the Toronto Blue Jays. The Cubs could not care less what happens next. They believe they're set now. They're convinced they can win their first National League Central title in a full season since 2017. And hey, last paragraph, with the Cubs convention scheduled this upcoming weekend, they not only plan to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the World Series, but believe it could be a prelude to an October to remember 2026.
Let's go back to the Olympics with an article on figure skating. U.S. skating trio best in about 25 years. Dateline St. Louis. They're friends rather than rivals. They finish each other's sentences and laugh at each other's jokes. They stand by the ice and cheer for one another. These three people, great American figure skaters all, are having so much fun that it's easy to ignore just how formidable an athletic trio they've become. Amber Glenn, Elisa Liu, and Isabel Livatito. The three women will go to Milan, and the 2026 U.S. Women's Olympic figure skating team will form the greatest American women's Olympic squad since around the turn of the 21st century, during the Michelle Kwan era, when American women always won Olympic medals. And since those days, it's been a rough going for the U.S. women at the Olympics. In fact, it's been 20 years since an American woman won an Olympic figure skating medal. Sasha Cohen, silver, 2006. But if the plethora of stellar performances in the women's long program Friday night to January 9th at the U.S. Championships is any indication of what's to come in Italy, that drought is about to end. In fact, Glenn said as much after winning her third consecutive national title, first U.S. woman to do that since Kwan. All we got to do is our job, said the 26-year-old Glenn, whose first trip to the Olympics comes after years of perseverance and patience in this confounding sport. As long as we do our programs to the best of our abilities, we cannot control the outcome, but I think the U.S. ladies have come so far in the last 2 decades that if all three of us do our jobs in Milan, then more than likely someone's going to be up there on the medal podium. But I think as long as we all stick to what we do best, then we will break the drought. They certainly stuck to the script here this past week with one scintillating program after another skated with flair and confidence and without mistakes, both Wednesday's short program and Friday's long. Although Glenn, Liu, and Levito are now nowhere near as well known as Kwan and her competitors, Tara Lipinski, Sarah Hughes, and Sasha Cohen, they performed under pressure just like old guard used to. The past 3 days here was like 1998 or 2002 all over again in U.S. women's skating, but with tougher jumps. When it was over, Glenn won with 233.55 points, followed by Liu, 228.91, and Levito with 224.45. For decades, there was arguably no more valuable gold medal to be won by an American in an Olympics winter or summer than that one given out in the women's figure skating, and Americans got very good at winning it. And then it stops. That's it. Skaters from Russia, Japan, and South Korea have done the winning over the past 2 decades, not Americans. Skaters like Mary Nagusu, Gracie Gold, and Ashley Wagner got close, but didn't quite reach it. For this group, Glenn, Liu, and Levito, feels different. Perhaps just the early exuberance of a spectacular nationals competition, but all three of those women will arrive for Olympics having won national titles. Glenn with three, Liu with 2, and Levito with 1. Also, for the first time since 2002, the United States will be sending a women's world champion, Liu, the reigning world champion at that, to the Olympics. The last time that happened at the Olympics was 2002 with Kwan. These will be heady days for U.S. women's skating. Predictions will abound. Can one of the three Americans win gold? Can the U.S. win 2 of the 3 women's medals, as they did most recently in 1998 and 2002? Will one of the three be able to fend off a strong contingent of Japanese women? And the latest Russian star, the only Russian female skater, has been allowed into the games, Adelia Petrosian. In February, this conversation gets very real. For now, the possibilities are a long-awaited delight.
Trying to get 4D. No.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Radio Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. This means we move to the entertainment section of USA Today. And we'll queue up an article here.
Are you getting Stewart didn't just test the water
What's that?
in 4D today's?
We're in the life section now.
Yes.
First article is titled Stars Felt Pressure Adapting Vacation, but the Fun Kicked In.
Is that yours or mine? Okay, go ahead.
Adapting a beloved bestseller for the screen is No Day at the Beach. I was kind of terrified, definitely, Emily Bader said alongside Tom Blythe, who swaps his English accent to play the actress's perfect American complement in People We Met on Vacation, Netflix's adaptation of Emily Henry's 2021 romance novel, centers on the year-long, thus far platonic friendship between Tight Beat travel writer Poppy Bader and tightly wound teacher Blythe, who vacation together each summer. He grounds her and she pushes him outside his comfort zone. The film is out now and arrival has been eagerly anticipated on TikTok's bibliophile subsect Book Talk. Emily Henry, thank you for saving the rom-com genre. One TikTok user commented on a trailer shared in September. You're exactly how I pictured my Poppy and Alex, another declared with a crying emoji. Bader, age 29, says she strived to do justice to the source material. Such a fangirl with so many things, so I know how important it can be to see the things that you love so much brought to life in this way. And you just want to make them happy, also showing them new things to get to explore the world in a different way. Blythe, age 30, also navigated treacherous adaptation waters to play Carolina Snow, 2023's high-profile The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's only terrifying when you fixate too much on trying to live up to expectations, he said. But when you let that go and you just stay with your scene partner, and Emily gives so much. So the minute I got on set, any fears I had of living up to expectations went out the window, because I was like, oh, this is just another great scene partner that I can look at and they'll give me everything I need. And if I stay with them, I'm in safe hands. Blythe also valued another author, Henry's resource when she visited the set. Anytime we feel a bit lost, he just looks at Emily, played by Henry, and says, "Is this right?" Blythe said. She was so supportive of us from the get-go. Bader agrees the best advice she really could have given us for this whole project was be free. I have faith in both of you and what we're doing here, and just have fun with it. That blessing from her, if you will, gave us that freedom to just have fun with the entire project. Yet there are two scenes from the book that the actors hope to successfully replicate on screen. First, Meet Cute, inspired by the Oscar-nominated classic When Harry Met Sally, which Alex and Poppy first met in Bonn while road tripping from college to their shared hometown of Linfield, Ohio. To me, it was the trickiest one, but also one of the most important ones, I said, because it's very much written specifically as a homage to kind of all the best rom-coms in a way. And so there was this double pressure there of honoring the book and also honoring the films that it referenced. There was a lot of pressure, but actually ended up being such a cool thing to be inside those scenes and go, wow, we're doing the When Harry Met Sally thing. We're doing it fresh with two different characters. The pair are especially determined to nail what arguably the most crucial and ironic or iconic moment in Poppy and Alex's story. There's a scene between Poppy and Alex in the rain, Bader said vaguely, careful to avoid any spoilers. And you can't skimp on that in a movie like this. So we really wanted to make sure that it was satisfying, hopefully, in this way it is when you read it on the page.
This next one is about movies, and it's titled Stewart Didn't Just Test the Water, She Plunged Right In. Kristen Stewart fought for a decade to direct The Chronology of Water. So she's going all out for the movie's Rock Show premiere in Los Angeles. I'm going to wear an expletive bathing suit, Stewart says conspiratorially on a recent Zoom call, and then that's it. Boom, done, move on. Stewart, 35 years old, has traveled the globe promoting The Chronology of Water in theaters since it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival last May. She's now finding it hard to let go. I've been fixated on this thing for so long, she says, who makes her directorial debut with the expressionist drama. Quote, this just felt like my own private thing for 10 years, so it's weird to have it traipsing around in the world and living its own life. Everyone feels like a mama when they make a thing and call it their movie, their baby. I know that's a cliche, but it really feels like a first-time fluttery mom feeling. Why it was so hard to make the film? The Chronology of Water star Imogen Poots called Stewart a gentle, delicate, and highly intelligent filmmaker. But based on Lydia Djukanovich's 2011 memoir, The Chronology of Water follows a woman, namely Imogen Poots, who survives an abusive childhood with the help of competitive swimming. But her Olympic-level talents are derailed by addiction, and she eventually finds healing through writing. Stewart read the book in 2017 and announced her intentions to direct a movie adaptation the following year. The project sat in relative limbo until 2024, as prospective producers balked at the dark subject matter and nonlinear storytelling. They deemed the music unmarketable, but Stewart, who had directed short films and music videos, was undaunted. I really stayed on this squirrely path, she says. A lot of people that I trust and love were like, I don't think there's a movie here. Ultimately, it's about having faith that you thought it did. As an actress, I sometimes feel that I don't fit certain places, says Imogen Poots, who stars in Kristen Stewart's new movie, with his I Realize It's Okay, provided by Corey C. Waters, The Force. Now, the process that she says I have to have faith about isn't so rarefied and dumb. If it fits for you, it's going to work for other people. Stewart partially credits her Princess Diana drama, Spencer, and 2022 Best Actress Oscar nomination for helping get eyes on the project. The only reason I was allowed to make this movie was because 10 different financiers were like, oh, it's Kristen Stewart. Maybe her taste isn't an expletive, says Stewart, who had her big screen breakthrough at age 10 in the 2002's Panic Room. One thing leads to another. Since I was a little kid, I'm piggybacking on every last experience I'm having all the time. She believes, not believed, but believes that she could have directed Chronology when she was younger, although it would have been a very difficult movie Quote, I don't necessarily believe in divine timing. I think everything's taking too long, Stewart says. At the same time, it was so hard to make a film, and I'm genuinely proud of my body and its ability to sustain carrying this beast. I don't know if I had that when I was 26 or 28. She's going to keep doing it her own way, the article says. Critics have embraced Chronology, which has 91% positive reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. People have been really nice about it, Stewart says. No one has slaughtered the film. I was expecting the movie to get battered. She figured they wouldn't warm to its languid pace and surreal imagery. I don't think people have a lot of patience for that, so I was surprised when people got it and felt passionate about it. Still, she gets frustrated by the patriarchal gatekeeping of women's stories. Research shows female filmmakers continue to be widely underrepresented in both the box office and the Oscars. There's a mass gaslight that's happening, as if it's difficult to point at the fact that we are not allowed to take up as much space. Stewart says now, sure, a couple more ladies are allowed to make movies than they were 20 years ago, but it's not going to change in my lifetime. Coming up, Stewart will star as astronaut Sally Ride in the limited series The Challenger, as well as film The Wrong Girls, written and directed by her wife, Dylan Meyer. She has her fingers and toes crossed that she'll film her next project in L.A. later this year, a micro-budget movie that she plans to make very quickly with her friends. And last sentence, it's about the industry, about very peripherally, Stewart teases. I can't wait. I love it so much.
This is a recap of the Golden Eve Gala. Mirren Parker honored as strong women get their due. Dateline, Beverly Hills, California. Helen Mirren is a number of things: an award-winning actor, a style icon, and a cheeky woman. But if you ask her two-time co-star Harrison Ford, she's also a badass. Ford presented Mirren, age 80, with the Cecil B. DeMille Award for Achievement in Entertainment at the inaugural Golden Eve celebration on Tuesday, January 6th. When they worked together in the 1986 film The Mosquito Coast and the recent Yellowstone prequel series of 1923, you've seen the performer embody characters that reflect just how cool she is in real life. The word comes to a mind's not dame, it's badass, Ford said. Helen Mirren can play a badass because she is one. A badass is raw, authentic, formidable, tough, and fearless. It pretty much describes Helen, the woman, and Helen, the artist. The event also honored Sex and the City star Sarah Jessica Parker with a Carol Burnett Award given to a person who's made outstanding contributions to television on or off screen. It's created in 2019 and named after the comedy icon. The inaugural Golden Eve, held at Beverly Hilton, aired January 8th on CBS and streamed on Paramount Plus before Sunday's 83rd Golden Globes. Legendary comedian Burnett was in the audience, and Parker, age 60, thanked her for both her artistic contributions as well as her life-changing impact on the star's family. It was 1967 at the auditions for the Ohio Valley Summer Theater production of Once Upon a Mattress, where my soon-to-be stepfather walked in and saw a young woman, my mother, on stage, auditioning for the role of Lady Larkin, that he said to himself, "That's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," Parker said. In 1959, Burnett starred in the original Broadway production of the same musical. Parker said, were it not for her work that led to countless future Once productions, my parents would never have met, and I wouldn't have had the daunting privilege of playing Princess Winifred in Broadway's first revival. Parker called Burnett a North Star, an inspiration, even though her family didn't own a television when she was younger. She would still find ways to watch The Carol Burnett Show. Burnett, naturally the first recipient of the award, told Parker, "My darling Sarah, welcome to the club." Parker's best known for her role as a newspaper columnist and fashionista, Carrie Bradshaw, on HBO's Sex and the City, and its sequel, And Just Like That. Receiving 2 Emmy Awards and 4 Golden Globes for the former. Several of her co-stars, including Evan Handler, Kristen Davis, and David Eigenberg, attended the ceremony. Reflecting on her Sex and the City days, Parker said she spent 25 years with the most glorious ensemble of women and actors, that she's forever grateful for the role. I cherish every 15th hour on set, or 16th hour, every walk and talk, looking into your eyes for the hardest and silliest moments, she said to her castmates and crew. In a fitting tribute, Academy Award nominee Coleman Domingo led attendees in toasting Parker with a pink Cosmo, Carrie Bradshaw's go-to cocktail. Matthew Broderick, Parker's husband of 28 years, presented her with the award, recalling the first time he met her. "She was a force to be reckoned with," Broderick said, and effusively, that to make her laugh is to see and hear the great delights of the world. He had the women and men all over the world come up to her, often with tears in their eyes, to thank her for her portrayal of Carrie Bradshaw. The Ferris Bueller's Day Off star also quipped that he was glad he didn't share his first thoughts after reading the show's pilot script. "Yeah, it's great, but do you think you really want to do TV?" Mirren showed her naughty side when accepting the 2026 Cecil B. DeMille Award. The Golden Globes hold a special place in her heart, British star said. It was the first American organization to give her an award. She won the 1997 Globe for Best Actress in a miniseries on television film for the movie Losing Chase. As eccentric as that group was, they noticed a small piece called Losing Chase that was way under the radar and gave me a beautiful golden ball, Mirren said. They followed with another, and I was proud owner of 2 large balls, which, as you can imagine, really helped my career. Rather than view the DeMille Award as simply a career recognition, she prefers to look at it as a life lived, a life survived, a life enjoyed, a life sweated, and a life carried on. She added she hopes the evening is an ongoing reflection of my career rather than a eulogy. Although I have to say, if this were my memorial, look out at this audience. I'm absolutely thrilled who showed up for me, Mirren joked, and I'm making a list of the no-shows.
And the next article is about movies. It says, Del Toro's Battle was won after a few small mems, by Patrick Ryan. One battle after another, in quotes, is not only an awards juggernaut and sleeper box office sensation, the Paul Thomas Anderson movie also has become a low-key pop culture phenomenon, inspiring countless Halloween costumes and memes featuring its vibrant cast of characters. Benicio del Toro has many of the film's best one-liners as Sensei Sergio St. Carlos, and an even-keeled karate teacher who helps run a Latino Harriet Tubman situation for immigrants out of his apartment building. In perhaps his most memorable sequence, Sensei comes to the aid of revolutionary-turned-stoner dad, Bob Ferguson, speeding down the freeway, sipping Modelo's before they spotted by police. Bob safely jumps from a moving vehicle, but the cops still apprehend Sensei for driving under the influence. When asked what he's imbibed, Sensei softly replies, "A few small beers." De Toro knew that one battle had become a crossover hit when people were quoting that line, or people would show me, "This is on the internet." he tells USA Today at the New York Film Critics Circle Awards. I'm not on the computer all the time, but that was kind of a bizarre thing because I don't remember saying that line, Del Toro said, who continues, although when the police officer asks me, how much have you been drinking? I do remember thinking that Sensei should not lie. But hearing that line go out there and seeing so many people dressed up like DiCaprio at Halloween and people imitating Sean Penn's walk as Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw, I saw a couple of those videos and thought they were really, really funny. Stiller salutes Del Toro in a New York Film Critics Circle Awards. One battle has been an unstoppable force so far this Oscar season, picking up Best Picture prizes at the Critics' Choice, Gotham, and NYFCC Awards. Del Toro, too, is considered a formidable contender for Best Supporting Actor, having picked up the largest share of major critics' trophies since groups began announcing their awards the first week of December. Ben Stiller, who directed Del Toro in the Showtime miniseries Escape from Dannemora, was on hand at Tao Downtown Restaurant to present the actor with his NYFCC honor. His memorable moments to screen time ratio is off the charts, Stiller said of his incredible and singular friend. In a movie where he comes in late to the story and leaves before the end, he's integral. In real time, we see him and we feel Sergio's humanity. He's there for Bob as he comes in and guides him and ultimately saves him. It's very moving. Stiller continued to praise Del Toro for his ability to create moments, quote, that we go to the movies to see. He pointed to Sensei's pivotal arrest scene and by the idiosyncrasies Del Toro brought to the already iconic character. The last sentence in this particular article is, the dance, when he lifts up his jacket, his attitude toward police as they arrest him, the twinkle in his eye when he says I said, I had a few small beers, Stiller recalled. It's funny. It's emotional. It is unforgettable.
Our last article, and I doubt if we'll have time for all of it, is titled Spin-offs Keep Stranger Things Universe Growing. Even the end of Stranger Things in sight, Netflix is keeping the door open 3 inches for more. The Netflix phenomenon highly anticipated series finale hit the streamer on New Year's Eve. While the final episode wraps the mainline show, it won't be the fans' last see of the Stranger Things world. The series universe already has expanded into games, books, and even a Broadway play, and at least 2 separate spin-offs are on the way. The one we know the most about is Stranger Things, Tales from 85, an animated series set to premiere this year. The show takes place in between the events of Season 2 and Season 3, will feature the return of main characters from the original series, including Eleven, Max, Mike, Lucas, Dustin, Will, and Hopper. New actors will step in to voice the roles. Welcome back to Hawkins in the stark winter of 1985, where the original characters must fight new monsters and unravel a paranormal mystery terrorizing their town in Stranger Things, Tales from 85, an epic new animated series. Netflix's official synopsis reads, Another Things spin-off will be live action, but its plot is a mystery. The original series creator Matt and Ross Duffer have had the idea in place for years, but they've provided any cryptic hints about it. Back in 2022, the pair told Variety they haven't told anyone their idea for a spin-off series, though one of their stars managed to figure it out on his own. We think everyone, including Netflix, will be surprised when they hear the concept because it's very, very different, they said. But somehow Finn Wolfhard, who's one crazy smart kid, correctly guessed what it was going to be about. But aside from Finn, no one else knows. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for the 12th day of January. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, please call at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Tom Scanlon and
Tom Travers.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 8 of Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. Following that, at 3 o'clock is the Smithsonian Magazine, and at 4 o'clock we have a re-airing of this morning's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have